We are back today, and today I'm really excited because I'm with Eri Kardos, and she's a relationship coach, speaker, and best-selling author. And she's had a really awesome journey that I'm not going to reveal anything right now. I'm actually going to pass it straight over to Eri. And well, firstly, I'm really excited to have you here. Like, I'm really glad we could find the time.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And get to talk about some really juicy stuff. I mean, this is the journey of the spiritual entrepreneur is quite the journey.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. So for obviously people who might not have come across your stuff or who haven't heard of you yet, could you kind of just give us a bit of an introduction of what you do in the space of what I mentioned, and just cover like a bit of info for yourself?
Sure. So super high level, a little bit of my background. So my background's in sexual psychology, and a lot of, I'm like, how do I start this? I guess we'll do a resume walkthrough. Sexual psychology, and then I ended up doing international business, getting my business degree from the world's #1 international business school, being hired into a special program run by Amazon.com for leadership development. Worked there for about 5 years doing leadership development and loved it. And along the way, I discovered that it's not really my passion to be in the corporate setting, but I became a certified coach along the journey. And I noticed that when I was coaching my leaders, that when trust was established and the door was shut, we weren't just talking about how the structure of the organization was going or how the team was developing or what our ROIs were. And so instead it was they would start revealing to me all these other truths that were happening in their lives too, which were things around how lonely they feel when they go home at night because their entire world is revolved around their careers, or how their marriage is falling apart, or how unhappy they're just feeling. And so I started doing more of a holistic coaching while in the corporate setting, and I loved it. I really felt like I could see the change. When things were good in their bedroom, things were much better in the boardroom. And I was like, this is magic. I want to work with people in this intimate setting and really have them feel that shift. And that's where I get my passion and my juice from. So I decided to take the leap, and it wasn't without a lot of thought and fear and all the things that we experience of like, oh my gosh, big change. Can I do this? But I did. And I left my job at Amazon. I decided I'm going to travel the world for a year and see if I can keep this coaching thing going while traveling and speaking. And so for about 8.5 months, I traveled and I spoke across 6 continents, and I got to talk on all sorts of topics that are near and dear to my heart. Things from just how we communicate and how we handle conflict and how we navigate that, to more taboo and edgy subjects like kink, BDSM, open relationships, ethical non-monogamy. And so across the board, just how do we look at relationships? And there's no right or wrong way, but how do we create something healthy for ourselves? And guess what? I kept all my clients. So the whole time I was like, this is incredible. I still get to have an impact while traveling. I'm still making money while traveling and learning about different cultures around the world and having a blast. I was in South Africa for a little while, as I talked to you about a little bit. And then when I came back, I decided, okay, this was so amazing. I just want to do this all the time. So I launched my own business really like fully head on. I'm like, okay, now I'm doing it. I'm not going back to my security blanket. Instead, I'm just really going to dive in. And that's when I wrote my best-selling book and really went head first in, and it was great. And so I've been now coaching I've been running my own business for about 7 years, and I've been coaching for about a decade now. So
amazing. Quickly bring the book a bit forward just so people can see the cover and the name properly.
Sure. So this is my book. It's called Relationship Agreements. Dun, dun. You can get your copy on Amazon or Kindle, and I'm working on making an Audible version. One other thing to mention is that brought us up to me starting my company and coaching. But the thing that a lot of people don't or find really fascinating is that that's not where it stopped. So I'm also a mom. So I'm married to an incredible man named 𝗕𝗓𝗄𝗃, and he is also a speaker, author, and coach. And when we fell in love, we decided that we just wanted to travel the world doing what we're passionate and called to do. And those two things were serving the world and also being parents. And so we had 2 children together, and we've been traveling. And for a while, we were a full-time traveling family with our own little YouTube channel and all that thing that you do.
Yeah.
And then it was crazy. For about a year of our life, we had 2 kids under 2, and we were both on speaking tour. And we were in a new city or country every 4 to 7 days. It was insanity and amazing, but I don't remember a lot of it. People are like, oh my gosh, how was that? I'm like, I remember packing, unpacking, and breastfeeding. That's kind of what I remember.
Like an absolute just roller coaster of like ups and downs and frantic and type of thing.
All the things and beauty. And like, Jamin is really sweet. He's like, okay, so I want you to try to remember, we went to Cuba together. Here's what it was like. You really loved dancing in the streets at night. I'm like, oh yeah, Cuba, that was awesome. Oh yeah. So it's really funny, that baby brain. What baby brain can do to you when you're like 2 kids under 2 and traveling. So we did that, and then we got to Bali, which is it was supposed to be a 3-week stopover. It's now been 3 years.
As many a story.
Love it. Yeah. And so we're here, and we're both actively involved as parents. We do a lot of work with parents, and a lot of work in our own coaching programs. And we use this as our hub. We still travel a lot with the kiddos just all around the world, but using this as our base now.
No, that's an incredible journey, and the learnings along the way, and also kind of the shiftings of what do you enjoy and kind of where your life is now. Oh, now I can potentially give value in this other direction. But I want to go almost like right back to the start, because a few things jumped out to me. You mentioned that you were working in this very corporate environment. It was an office, but like you said, you kind of handed these very juicy conversations with people just out of like, not out of the blue, but like, why do you think people were kind of comfortable with you just to start opening up and talking about these things in this type of environment where that dynamic might not have been, oh, this is what people do?
Yeah, I think a couple things. Number one, I think that I've always been that person. So when people are coming to me and they're saying, I don't know my purpose, I don't know what I should do, I usually ask them to start like, what do people naturally come to you for? What is that thing that people already recognize in you? And it could be your amazing ability to fix things like with your hands. It could be your amazing ability to listen. There are lots of different skills people have. Maybe you're passionate about numbers, and other people just are terrified of it. It's like, what are people already looking to you for guidance on? And is it something that you also love doing naturally? And if it is, perhaps you're moving that towards your passion. Maybe that is part of your purpose. And so instead of trying to figure out like, what am I supposed to be doing? Maybe you're already doing it, and we just don't know how to do it or how to use that gift to serve yet. So for me, I've always been that listening person. And I was really blessed and fortunate. In my high school, they ran a program called Natural Helpers, and they had all the students in the school had to fill out this survey and say, who do you go to? Who are your peers that you go to that you know you can trust? And there were 10 of us that were selected out of our huge school. And they put us through a special training program of how we can learn to actively listen, how we can actually be a support, and what are the resources that if we learn about heavy things like people who are feeling suicidal or people who are really struggling with things at home or domestic violence, I learned what to do with that. So it wasn't just listening. I also knew the resources that were available to me and to my peers. And that's where it began. I would say it really began with like, wow, this is really empowering. And I'm already doing this. Yeah. So it just continued down throughout life. And I'd say I've been doing this forever, just naturally. And I love it. And then it took me a lot to lean into, is this okay for me to charge money for? Right? And then that was a big struggle, especially as a woman. We're supposed to be very caregiving. We're supposed to be very nurturing. We're supposed to be good listeners. So if that's what I'm supposed to be doing, is it even okay for me to ask money for that? Right? Yeah. I'm helping people. I should be for a gift always, right? And that was a huge struggle for me of just coming to terms with, it's okay for me to get paid big money to do consulting, but it's not okay for me to ask for any exchange for the helping stuff. And that was a beautiful transition to see that I would just say that two things really impacted that switch. One was getting a business coach. I would highly recommend that people, if you're starting out, hire a business coach. They've been through it all, you know, not just any business coach, find one that you really resonate with. Yeah. You know, your intuition says it's a good person to work with. And you can see from the testimonials, you can see that they have actually impacted other people's lives positively. But then just take the leap, make the investment to work with somebody who can get you there, because they've learned it all and they know all the tips and tricks. Had I just I really believe that if I had known to invest in myself in that level early on, it would have saved me literally years of work and struggle. Years. And I would have made so much more. And it's not about the money, but I would have made a lot more money. And money can equal love, and money can equal freedom. And there's this like, if the old me heard that, I'd be like, what the fuck? Sorry, I don't know if I can swear on this.
Go out.
But I'm like, money equals love, but it really can. We can express ourselves, and we can allow other people to express themselves, and we can really love on the world through abundance. Abundance of all forms. But stop being afraid of what this means or the story. I worked with there are two quick notes. One, my first business coach was somebody that Jamin introduced me to, a man named 𝗔𝘂𝘁𝗶𝗄𝗏. He was on the show America's Top Secret Millionaires. And I just remember going to his big conference and him walking in a room, and there's like hundreds of people there. And he so boldly was like, whatever you're charging, it's not enough. Go home and double it. I'm like, you don't know me. You don't know what I do. And all this like fight came up in me, like, how dare you, you know? And then I was like, wow, what does that say? Wherever you're at in your journey, what does that say? And it really stirred up a lot in me. A couple of years later, I was working with another phenomenal business coach named 𝗤𝗟, and she works with female entrepreneurs.
Hi, Mom.
Excuse me. Goodbye, honey. I love you. Have a great time. I'm not available right now. Okay. Bye. No. Okay, you get a guest appearance.
Hi.
Very, very nice helmet.
Okay.
I like the
Now
color.
you have to go. I love you. Bye. So I was working with 𝗤𝗟, and she asked me this beautiful question that one of her mentors had asked her. She said, if you're looking at your relationship with money, she's like, you're a relationship coach. What is your relationship like with money? If money were your lover, would it want to have sex with you? And I was like, oh no, it would not. I neglect her. I run from her. I down talk her. Like, no way. I definitely don't spend time with her. Right. And it really brought up a lot for me, and just saying, like, what is this relationship like? This story, what are the stories that I'm holding? And spending time really being with that, and going through a big process of, is this serving me? And I say those are some of my biggest turning points for what happened and what was potential in my career. Because when I let go of this limited mindset of like, this is what money is, and this is how it should be, and I was able to really be in a healthy relationship with it, all of a sudden, the way that clients were showing up changed. The types of clients that were showing up changed. The ease of which my bank account just magically, it felt like it was just like, okay, now that roadblock is out of the way, let me just show you, poof, you know, it's like, what just happened? Had I known, but you don't know until you've experienced it. So it's kind of like this crazy leap of faith, I feel like, to go into coaching or to be an entrepreneur. It's like, can I take this leap and make it okay? And you don't know until you take this leap.
No, I'm really, really glad that you went into more detail in regards to the fact that you had a mentor, you had the money mindset things come up, because I mean, there's still stuff I want to go back to about your first jump in, but like that first jump already is quite scary. And then a lot of people make the jump, they're like, oh, finally did it. And then it's like struggle for a long time. And like, if you're kind of always thinking about how am I going to cover my bills for the next X months, or how do I pay my team it's like you can't give yourself fully to the people you're working with. You can't give your full energy, especially in like a spiritual space where whether you're doing relationship coaching like yourself, or with life coaching or tarot reading, being able to really be there for the person fully energetically. You can't do that if your mind is, how am I going to pay my rent? Or like you can't fully be there and give the full experience.
Yeah, exactly. And then you find all these ways to rationalize, like, oh, I like Canva. I can make this graphic. And it's like, I want you to know that you can spend all of your time doing the thing that really changes the world. And if you stop thinking that you are a one woman or one person show, and you allow for there to be ease, be like, I want to do what I am naturally called to do and serve the world in this way. And the best way I can do that is to really step into this. What does it mean to be a business owner? What does this mean to be focused, and allow other people who are passionate about other things like graphic design and website building and marketing and all those things are important, but they're not yours. Let somebody else handle that. But to get to that point, you have to lean and be like, how do I invest in myself to know how to make the right decisions? How to have the confidence to let go of stories that aren't working for me, and how to shift into the ones that are going to propel me forward at rapid speed, because it's not worth the struggle. And I rationalized that struggle so well. I was really good. I'm like, I'm such in service to this world by not like feeling my own self-worth and stepping into it and doing the scary things. And I can tell you now, the impact I have is so much greater when I got out of my way.
Yeah. Is it almost like you felt as if like self-sacrificing made you more authentic?
Yeah, totally. I definitely felt like the self-sacrifice definitely made me, like more of a sweet authority, right? Well, I'm the Mother Teresa of relationship coaching. Don't you want to work with me?
Yeah.
And people are like, who are you? And I'm like, and now it's a very different place. It's also, you look at things from more of a psychological standpoint. When people are offered free things, how much they show up, right? If you're like, here's this free 500 hours of an amazing coaching program that will change your life. How many of us have something like that sitting in our inbox somewhere? We don't even know what it was, right? But we got this free thing that sounded really cool. I have just seen over and over and over again over the years that when people have to invest in themselves, they have to put skin in the game, that it changes how they show up.
Yeah.
So it is out of integrity for me to ask somebody to show up and not really invest themselves. It doesn't work. I've tried all sorts of models, and the ones that were like free to almost free, there's no transformation. They didn't care. They weren't invested in like 99.9% of the time. And there's always that one person who's just like, I am so ready and I found you and great. But you always have the ability as a business owner to gift your gifts when you want to. When it feels like the right time. It's not like you're bound to this, like, oh my God, I have a price tag and now I'm stuck there. It's like, there have been times when I just know I'm supposed to work with somebody and I can freely, joyfully give it as a gift or as a, whatever feels appropriate at that time. So it's not like you lose your power, right? You gain the power for yourself.
And it probably varies based on what your focus is and also the people you're working with, but do you find there's a certain price point where you think they actually do start kind of taking it seriously? Because there's another guy I really, really like. His name is 𝗤𝗲𝗍𝗏. He does a podcast called the $100 MBA. And he was saying he feels that even if an item's like $19, $29, like instead of doing a free lead magnet, just doing that really low cost item, he finds even that qualifies people a little bit more, like who's actually going to be serious about this. But it sounds like you feel to be a bit higher.
It depends on where you're at in your funnel, right? And if you're doing a lead magnet, I am totally in agreement with him. And I think there's something to be said about, so one of the things that my husband teaches, he has a book called Network Like a Rock Star, and he became famous for his own stuff around like, how do people use the power of networking to land the job they want or get the promotion they want and all of that. He does a lot more than that now, but at the time, the real crux of networking that he teaches is these three factors are know, like, and trust. Do people know you? Do they like you? And do they trust you? And that's so much of what building a funnel is about. It's, do people know you? Do they like you? And do they trust you? Because this is part of making sure that it's the right fit. I only want to work with people who I'm a fuck yes to, and that they are a fuck yes to me. That's it. And I will draw my boundaries, and I will fire my clients if it's not that. But over the years, I've gotten pretty darn good at knowing who's the right fit before we even enter that relationship. But a lot of that is because I create lots of opportunities for me to know me. There is a free lead magnet. There is a low barrier to entry opportunity to learn about me, right? There are free events that happen or low cost things that happen. And my book, you can get to know me through $15, right?
Yeah.
And that has, and these are ways to start building trust. And some people are going to love me and some people are not going to like me at all.
Yeah.
And that's great. I want you to just feel whatever you feel. And if you're like, wow, this is amazing, way she talks, the things she has to share, something's just hitting me about who she is, I think I need to explore working with her. Beautiful. But I need to give you those opportunities to get to know me, right? If I sit back here and I'm just like waiting, or I only put a high price tag, the chances of you getting a chance to really see, do a handshake, right? To do a handshake, it's just not there.
Yeah. It's otherwise you're just diving straight into the deep end, and that's a bit much for people sometimes. One thing you mentioned from the kind of start of your journey when you're still in the corporate side, which I really wanted to kind of just like bring up again, was you mentioned people were already coming to you. Well, people had already always been coming to you. So like that's, I think, is a really important lesson to iterate, is like, pay attention. What are people already coming to you for? Or even ask people, this is what someone else told me. It's like, even ask people, what would they come to me for? Or what do they think I'm like a genius or brilliant at? Because you're sometimes not always aware. In your case, it sounds like it was quite obvious, and you had that, people were nurturing that skill you had already from like a young age. But sometimes we're not always aware, like what people think of us as a genius at. And like, that could be our path, our direction, if we feel passionate about it as well.
I highly recommend you do some market research on yourself.
Yeah.
So if you are active on social media and you feel comfortable in that space already, then put it out there. Be like, what do you see as my gifts? What would you come to me for? Yeah. What do you see? What would you guess my purpose in life is? These types of questions, put it out there and see how people respond. And if you're like, that's not me, I'm not on social media, I don't have a big presence, that's okay. But lean into who are the top 10 people around me and ask this question, who know me. Like, what's their response? And these people want to respond. People want to help you.
Yeah.
And this is just flexing the muscle of how do I do market research? Because I think for me, one of the greatest tools I've found is being able to go out to people and say, what do you need? How can I make sure that I'm serving you best and not just out of my own desires? Like when I started doing business, I was using all these cool phrases that I thought were amazing, that I knew were really cool for me.
Yeah.
And they didn't resonate with other people. They weren't hitting people's hearts. And then I started learning the art of spending time every 6 months doing market research on the people that I serve. I've been serving a similar demographic for a decade now, but I'm always learning something new about them and where are people at and where are they feeling stuck. So once you decide like, okay, well, I think I want to be a relationship coach, I'll say that one because that's what I do. Then I can go out and I can say, okay, well, I'm looking for people to help me with market research. And then we hop on like an hour-long call. People love to talk about themselves. People love to help. Everybody just wants to be seen, heard, and loved. And doing market research, if you're like, I feel like I'm taking, trust me, people will get so much out of the chance to be heard and seen and just held in that space. It's such a gift you're giving them. And they're giving you. And so you get this chance to be like, okay, where are you feeling stuck in whatever this area of life is, relationships, finances, business, career, sex, whatever it is. Where are you feeling stuck? What would you, if you could wave a magic wand, what would be different? Who would you need to be to make that different? To show up in that way, and if I could support you in some magic way, what would I do? And people will just tell you what they want and what they need. And it's beautiful. And it's like, you just told me all the things you'd like me to do. And chances are, because of my life experience, because of my hours of training, because of all of my, like what I do, I know how to give that to you. So now let me make that for you. And like, it's almost like tailoring for helping people. Like, oh, you have this injury. Let me fix up this beautiful concoction of herbs for you to help you get better. Here's the medicine. There you go. Okay.
Yeah. It's like, what do you need? Cool. Let's put that together for you.
Yeah.
So when you took that jump into doing your own thing, it sounds like you already almost like had a few clients that you just kind of were like, hey, now I'm doing my thing. Let's work together. Or did you still have to kind of do a bit of networking, kind of having a few conversations to find that first few clients? How did that kind of go for you, for people wanting to potentially take that jump?
I did all of the above, but I was very fortunate. So I came from the tech industry, and going through a coaching program, one of the benefits of going through a coaching program was that it expanded my network of people who are interested in coaching. That was great. But I would say that one of the biggest blessings is that I was already known in the tech industry. And so I would just invite people. I'm like, if you know people who are struggling, especially around relationships, then feel free to pass on my number. Yeah. And that was huge. And that, I would say, the just asking for what I want and letting people know that I'm available was really big. And I was able to work with top tech executives in pretty much every company, Microsoft, Facebook, Apple, like around the world. And it was really cool. And then it started growing. The more people knew it was okay to do referrals, and there was trust, and especially in a kind of an edgy area, I found that it was really interesting. And next thing I know, like, I'm working with Hollywood actors, and it was, and doctors and lawyers. And like, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Really cool. But a part of me still didn't believe it. Right. Part of me still was like, this can't be this easy. And so Jamin used to laugh at me. We'd be on road trips, and I had this idea that if I got my business card up in enough coffee shops, the right people would find me. Yeah. I think my business card is probably still up from 10 years ago, or at least 7 years ago, in coffee shops all across America, like in the middle of nowhere. I think I've gotten exactly one client out of that ever.
Like, I saw your card in a Starbucks in this random town, and you're like, oh wow.
Yeah, it was kind of like that. Yep. I was like, it worked. I got one client.
I knew it would pay off after a decade.
So that was a big thing. Also, just learning. So I would say I was really fortunate, and when I took the leap, I already was learning the art and power of using my network and referrals. Yeah. Not everybody has that. Then the next big leap was learning the power of using social media. And I am nowhere near great at this yet. It's on my, okay, this is a future goal. Like next year it's going to happen. Yeah. But I did invest in learning how to do online group programs and learn how to just do these things like market research and create programs that are for larger groups of people who really want support at a lower price point. And that really shifted things a lot. Of like, wow, I can speak eloquently to more than one person. Yeah. So that helps. And I would also say that if you're starting out and you're like, how do I gain clients? Do things like this, hop on podcasts. And if you're like, nobody's asking me to do a podcast. Okay, well, ask what you want. Yeah. Like, hey, I'm starting this business. I do this thing. I'm really passionate about it. I noticed you have this podcast. Do you need any speakers? And a lot of times you'll find opportunities to hop on and share your passion. Yeah. And you never know who's going to hear you. You never know when it's going to turn into something, when that little seed you plant is going to grow into something powerful.
Yeah. And make it easy for the people, especially in that podcast world. It's like, say like, hey, I think your listeners or viewers would learn something from my experience. This is a topic I feel would really resonate with your viewers. Like, this is something that would work. Yeah. But I love the fact that there's the last few conversations I've had, it's been that same few points you've brought up as well. It's like, you just got to let people know what you're doing and reach out to people. Like, you just got to speak to people. Like, maybe it's with business cards in the Starbucks, maybe not the best return, but it's just that. It's, you just got to be putting yourself out there and let people know what you're doing. So your first few kind of didn't come that way, but you had them. And then from that point on, you've just been doing that market research as things have changed, as you've kind of found your passion more. Then again, hey, this is what I'm focusing on, who's keen or who kind of resonates with that. And just from that point, it's gone up and up and up. Is that kind of being the trajectory?
And one other thing, I remember a story that I told myself in the beginning a lot was like, don't give away too much. Like you need to like somehow give just enough so that they're really hungry for more. And like there was this weird energy around it. And I have to say that the more I've learned, the more it's like, speak from your heart, give from your heart, whatever your passion is. And it doesn't mean you're going to work for free, but it does mean trust your intuition. And if you are in the middle of a podcast and you feel like you're supposed to give away this big secret, just trust it, go for it, do that thing. Somebody needs to hear that. And if it's going to turn into a client for you, then it's going to turn into a client for you because you didn't hold back. So there's something to be said about not being afraid to just be yourself, be authentically you, whatever that means.
No, I think that's also an amazing point to end on, kind of how we summarize the journey. And also I love that last point about just give value, give what you're feeling, like what feels good. So if people wanted to reach out to you and even just ask you a few questions or work with you in the relationship coach space and things like that, what's the best way for people to reach out to you, connect with you, or anything you direct them to?
Yeah, I'll give you all my links so they can easily click. But on Instagram, I'm Coach Eri Kardos. On Facebook, I run a private Facebook community called Love and Relationships Community. And my email is great. And I support all my clients on different online app platforms too. But if you just reach out to me on any of those, Messenger, Facebook, Instagram, email, you'll get me. You'll get me, or you'll get my assistant who will get you to me. And then we can set up time to just explore what's coming up for you and how I can support you. And I always say, if it's not me, then I have such an incredible network of people and resources that I can at least help point you to where you need to go. And I want to be really clear real quickly as we're wrapping up that when I say relationship coaching, I work with people who want to be in relationships, who have old patterns that they know are holding themselves back, and they want to like work on that before they get into their next relationship and attract their next relationship. I work with people who are already in relationship and just want to go deeper or reconnect. If the fire has died, how do you rekindle that? And how do you stop fighting, have better intimacy? I work with people who are in relationship and they're having that conversation of like, hey, we're considering opening up. What does that mean? What is polyamory? What is ethical non-monogamy? What if we have this fantasy of having a threesome, is that even possible? So like starting to talk about what is that and how do we safely talk about that without it killing our relationship? And then people who are in relationship and they've just decided they're done, but how do they have a conscious uncoupling with care, with love and honor for what was in the past? So it kind of goes all across the board. So I just want to speak to whatever, if someone like this is landing with you, if you're listening, reach out. I would love to at least hear what's on your heart and hold space for you. And if I can support you, great. And if not, I have amazing resources that I'm of course happy to point you towards. So thank you everybody for listening. Thank you for this lovely interview. It was really fun to talk more about the business journey. I love it. It was so fun. And hopefully this was helpful.
It's been an absolute pleasure. And also a lot of big takeaways, I think, for everyone who's wanting to go on that journey or who have started that journey, but want to kind of get into it more. So yeah, really, really thank you for your time, Eri.
You're welcome. Thank you. It was great. Bye.
That's it.